All right, Saga, what are you looking at?
Well, the single worst part of this pandemic has been the treatment of young children. The closing of schools, the forcing of masks, the intentional effort by the CDC and the media to scare the living daylights out of parents for a disease which is not fundamentally a risk to the vast majority of children here in the US or on Earth. And while we have as much information as we ever could to reverse these draconian policies, some people, they just won't give up. And unfortunately, while those people are a minority of this country, they also happen to be the most powerful people in the world. They have the highest positions in the CDC, the White House, the US government. In their positions of power, they seek to institutionalize their insanity upon all of us, and even worse, upon kids. Nowhere is this more stark than masks in schools, where Biden administration has announced an unprecedented action. Biden's Treasury Department is instructing the state of Arizona that it would take back some of the $4.2 billion in pandemic aid and withhold future payments if the state does not halt or redesign programs which undercut mask requirements in schools. These are dollars explicitly given to the states by Congress for education purposes, and Arizona is using them as they see fit to encourage in-person instruction and even aid to families who want their kids to be able to attend schools without onerous restrictions. That's too far for the Biden administration, which through this action is making a full-throated government defense of masks in schools. Now, those who watch me regularly know the great irony of the Biden administration action here, as I have dedicated an entire monologue to. The CDC study justifying masks in schools is complete BS. David Zweig of The Atlantic pointed out that the study allowed online and virtual schools in its control group. It used ridiculous criteria to define a community COVID case, and the time horizon of which they said they were looking at was not valid data whatsoever. But here's the most ironic part. That study by the CDC justifying masks in schools was based on the BS data set out of the state of Arizona itself. You can't make this up. The CDC's junk science was based on BS Arizona data, and then when the state of Arizona rightfully defies that guidance, the government threatens to claw back aid from them. Now, we have gotten to a point where the public health bureaucrats and their apparatchiks in government have embraced wholesale child abuse to simply not admit that they were flat wrong on closing schools, and just as wrong when it comes to justifying masks in schools. Just to cover my bases fully, Britain, where they had an actual experiment with many more students and much better data, found that there was zero statistical impact from wearing masks in schools, and thus they do not have it as national policy. Layer that obvious piece of news that the CDC finally admitted to, that they concede that cloth masks do not protect against the virus as effectively as other masks, so masks in schools don't really work. Actually, cloth masks themselves barely work. So why exactly are we forcing kids to wear them? Nobody has an answer to that question, and any sane person or parent knows that this is ridiculous. That is why masks in schools are set to be the best political fight of my generation for Republicans. Newly inaugurated Governor Glenn Youngkin, he announced on his very first day of office in Virginia, the statewide mandate to wear masks in schools was repealed. And from here on out, it would be up to the parents if they want their kids to wear masks or not. That's a great policy. If you want to inflict that on your kid, I disagree, but it's a free country. For the rest of us, we are moving on. It is one of the most obvious political winners of the last 2 decades, but which of course the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki somehow found the need to come out on the other side of that. She's going after Glenn Youngkin for coming out against masks in schools. Psaki thanked the Arlington Public School District for, quote, standing up for our kids, teachers, and administrators. This once again has no scientific basis. Youngkin's order is simple. If Jen Psaki wants to strap an N95 to her kid's face, fine. Any person who is concerned, including staff, you can do the exact same thing. The fact that they insist on strapping a mask to your kid's face shows that they don't respect you, and they don't respect science, and they will literally never give these things up for everybody. It is not enough for them to just have the option. They will only be happy when everyone on every plane and school and college in the country is as miserable and terrified as they are. And to that end, I honestly say, keep it up. It will be the biggest electoral backlash in modern memory. Some electoral analysts, as we covered today in the show, say it could be the biggest blowout in a century. I think that's right. And the reason is obvious and simple. These people care more about voting rights and the fake Build Back Better Act, whatever that is, than making sure that your daily life is not miserable and expensive. In fact, the misery is probably the point. But that's why, lucky for us, we still live in a democracy. And the very last thing that we have at our disposal is the vote. So make sure you use it, because COVID policy departed science long ago. To escape misery requires turning on these people at every turn, regardless of party. Only one of the great shellackings in modern American political history will shut them up. And even then, it may not be enough. But at least it will be something. And Crystal, I was telling you this before the show, Alexandria Public School response to the
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.